All right, so I'm here with Jason Bekemeier, and we're going to be talking about how to keep your IT team from feeling burnt out. And I actually come from a sales background, and so let me ask you first, Jason, are IT people different from salespeople when it comes to burnout?
Maybe just a little bit. I don't know.
They don't never get burnout, right?
Right, exactly. They just want to hack away all day long.
Uh,
No, there's definitely a big difference there. So, burnout, I think is pretty easy to run amok with whatever you do for a living. I mean, there has to be a balance at some point.
mhm. Is it pretty standard? I mean, there's a lot of different areas you cover over IT. Does the burnout look different for different people as far as like from your management of what you've got to see from the people that you've worked with?
Not so much, not so much in that area. I think what we do, fixing all the
Mhm.
time, it seems like it's a pretty consistent way for people to burn out when you're in front of your computer all the time staring at that screen because that's how we fix. So it's kind of a similar burnout amongst the guys, which you know even simple stuff like getting up and getting away from your computer and walking around the building and getting some fresh air. This I got to figure out a way to get them pulled away from their monitors. So
Yeah,
it's pretty consistent. The burnout's pretty consistent. They need to get up.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, as far as that, I mean, we wanted to go over just, I don't know, three or four different ways maybe you've worked with that. I know with me, I've just worked with a lot of teams. I mean, obviously, I was with the ops team for the last 6-ish months or so, and have been able to learn a lot about just the differences of that from the sales side. And I've worked with our finance and admin team, at least to some extent. So for you, like if your first thing that you say, hey, this is one way that I really focus on doing this, like what would be maybe some example or maybe something you want to talk about?
Well, the one thing that I noticed that the guys do is when they take days off, they're still responsive.
Mhm.
If they see a Teams chat come through, they they respond. And I'm like, guys, you're off. Don't respond. Shut your phone off. Turn your notifications off for Teams. You need to disconnect. And along with that is encouraging their vacation days. Use your vacation, which usually isn't a problem. But when you're on vacation, disconnect. I have to work on that by myself. I need to disconnect when I'm away from work. But that's one thing I try to encourage them to just really, really disconnect. That you have to do that.
Yeah, you do. What's funny is you and I were talking about this, and we went through this actually with you, and I had another person as well, and they had the same thing. They would literally just be on their phone, and they were available 24/7. And I remember specifically with you, and I had kind of made a note that was like, you have to force a break sometimes, man. Like if you're a good manager, a good leader, like sometimes you just have to say, hey. All right, we're going to put it on your calendar. When are you going to take a break? And I mean, that's literally what you and I did. And I remember it was a
Yep.
Wednesday, I think, originally, and then you didn't take it on the Wednesday. And so I was like, that's fair. But now we got to get back on when are you doing it? And you ended up taking it on like a Thursday or Friday. You and your wife went and did something.
Yeah.
But I literally followed up on it, just like any other task. I was like, hey, I want to know that you're shutting your phone off at what time? Okay, 5:30. So if I text or call you, it'll go straight to voicemail. And so like, and then the next day, checked in because it is. And I get like the other part of that, and I did this as a sales rep. There's like this fear that something horrible is going to happen the second that you really do disconnect.
Yep.
So that first time that you really say, that's it, I'm going to disconnect, like you kind of come back and maybe some things have happened, but you realize like people were working for you, working on it for you. The world isn't falling apart, like everything's still okay. And that's so important. I mean, man, that makes a big difference just after you take that first break.
Yeah, it does. And it was a relief too, after you forced me to take off. And that gives you a lot of confidence in your team too, because we know the team that we have around us can do the work. It's literally that letting go of it is
Mm.
what's hard to do. And sometimes it takes, your manager, like you did to me, at pointing out, it's like, you'll be fine. The team will be fine. Just connect. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what else do you have? I mean, we both kind of shared a little bit there.
one thing I try to do, when they do a good job, now you can't just fall over yourself all the time because the guys do a good job all the time. But when they do something that's pretty substantial and a really good job, I like to, give them recognition, talk about it. People don't always respond to praise, but it's still good to hear. I mean, I like to know when I'm doing a good job. And it's not a gloating thing or anything like that. It's just, sometimes you need for somebody to recognize that you're doing a good job. So when they do, I like to make note of it. Say, hey, you guys rocked it today. You did really, really well. This client got a great email from them. And that's kind of a pride thing too. And that helps. It helps you not be down in the weeds all the time, in my opinion. And it seems like it helps the guys with that, that burnout feeling when you can get that attaboy from time to
Yeah,
time from your manager or even from your coworkers or your peers, because it kind of keeps you focused and gives you something to smile about.
100%. Yeah, yeah, that's really good. Um, for me, I made a note of something that really we take kind of a what we'll call like the oh man, the personality profile or something like that, along those lines. We and it's so funny to watch how different people are, right? And so again, coming from a sales background, I kind of noted like just the difference between extroverts and introverts is so funny. And recognizing, which end of that spectrum you're on. And so coming from a sales background, most of them would probably be extroverts, where I would imagine when we talk about IT people, it might not be that way, right?
Just the opposite.
Yeah. So it's funny that I would listen to people, and even in sales, and they'd come back from a weekend and they're like, "Man, I'm just exhausted. What did you do?" And they were like, "Well, I went to the middle of the woods and camped and everything else, and I was all by myself, blah blah." And it was like, "You hate being by yourself. Like you literally are in my office 14 times a day talking." Because you love to talk to people, like you get energy from that. Um, but it's funny, and I'm sure IT is the same thing. They may come in and be like, "Man, I'm so wore out." It's like, "What'd you do?" "I went to a concert." And you're like, "Oh yeah, I can see you probably hated every second of that." It's like,
Yep.
well, my spouse or significant other or whatever else wanted to go do that, so I went and did it. And it's like, yeah, you probably didn't get refueled. So like recognize, and even for us as leaders or managers, like knowing where we get to plug in and fill our tanks is really important to recognize that difference.
Yes, it is. It's very important.
Uh, well, how about do you have anything else you wanted to add on this?
I do. When I was early on in my professional career, when I was a project manager, the one thing that my supervisor did, he would encourage me to do training from time to time to get me out of the weeds, the day-to-day weeds of what I was doing. And I loved it. And some people don't like training, but for the most part, when it comes to the tech world, most of the guys do like training. They're always looking for continuing ed. It's just in their makeup. They're fixers, they're hackers. They like to be able to learn new things. And so when it comes up where they can, take a half a day or sometimes even a full day or 2 days and sit in on training, remove themselves from the barrage of emails that they get and, the day to day in front of your computer, just fixing stuff, they really seem to like it. And that's one way I can get them to disconnect while they learn. So, it's kind of a twofold for a manager. They're bettering themselves, they're getting better for the company, and they're disconnecting to help with that burnout, because burnout's a real deal. And we have a report that tracks our utilization, and we like to keep that somewhere between 70 and 80%, because if it gets any higher, you're going to run the risk of burning out. So it's I want to know how long they are sitting in front of that computer weekly, fixing. And it's a measurable that we track.
That's really good. I mean, it's funny how much like even like just the change of scenery, right? I mean, you think about like, do you remember when everyone went remote and like we were slammed, especially on the IT side, but like everyone was killing it.
Yeah.
Like, and like they were motivated, things were going well, like especially like fairly easily that first couple weeks. And like it's partially just it's just different. And so like, it's kind of exciting, it's kind of fun. And then, that natural burnout kind of like the lull comes in where like 2 weeks in, you're like, all right, when we going back to the office?
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of done with, I mean, and not that everyone wants to be back in the office, but there was just that shift was fun at first. And then the new wears off of it. And you're like, hold on. And so like, I mean, training, being a breakup, like there's so many things you can do like that though. You're right, that kind of help just give you a break from the normal day to day.
Yeah. Yep. It's important. It's
Yeah.
important for sure. Yep.
So, man, appreciate you, Jason. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
And,
Thanks, Lee.
look forward to doing another one.
All right.